While I was selling drugs, I contracted hepatitis B and HIV. And so
Let's welcome DeVannon Hubert. Thank you so much for your amazing energy and thank you so much for being here.
hey baby, I'm so glad to be spending some quality time with you today.
Oh,
Hallelujah.
you have an amazing energy. We have been chatting before the show, and I'm like, oh my God, he has a wonderful energy. And it's 8 p.m. here, so I needed that energy. I needed like that vibe and that energy, and I'm enjoying it. Imagine there is a commercial, like a big commercial, maybe in New York City somewhere, I don't know, about DeVannon. But what would the commercial say about you?
Gosh, I might be almost 40 years old, but I think I might have finally gotten to know myself this year. So I'll be 39 next month on December the 16th. And I was telling my boyfriend, I think this is the year that I actually, for the first time, learned to love myself and actually could look in the mirror and say, I accept myself for who I am. Somebody struggling to lose weight, somebody who's not straight, somebody who's not white, living in the South of the United States. And, and I'm totally cool with all of that. And this is the first year that I no longer hate some sort of aspect of myself. I'm so happy to be here and so thrilled to have a super transparent, vulnerable, meaningful, value-adding conversation.
Oh my God, you are amazing. You are amazing. And okay, obviously that is not everything that you have done in your life, but whatever you have mentioned, like I am so beyond, like you have been in military. You will, and it's like such a contrast. You have so many sides of yourself. First of all, let's start about your podcast. What was the motivation for starting the podcast, and why did you choose the name that you chose?
The motivation was the book, because I was already working on the memoir. Then everyone was like, people who write books these days tend to have a show so they can kind of get some momentum starting before they release the book. It's a great way to market your own shit. And so I was like, okay, that's logical. It makes sense. So let's start it. The name Sex, Drugs, and Jesus is relevant to everything that is in the story, because there's a lot of sex in my memoir. Like it kind of reads like a romance novel, like in a lot of parts, because we get into details, dicks and holes and cum and all kinds of stuff we're talking about. The stuff that I like to hear about when I read a romance novel. I'm like, skip the cute shit. Get me to the
yes.
So there's that. And sex sells. It's a very marketable thing, and you always want to have sex in books or anything relationship related. Every movie, every song has some sort of element of some sort of love happening or lust or whatever. People just like it. I mean, look how much money porn makes.
People love it.
If you write a book, you have to have sex in it. And the drugs, because I used to be a drug dealer. My drugstore was called Drugs R Us, and I sold everything, but especially crystal meth. And and I ended up homeless, dealing with the criminal element and everything like that. And so the drugs come into play. I wanted that in the title because most people have experimented with some sort of drugs. There's an element of society that shuns drug dealers and drugs, but even they've dabbled a bit. They just don't want to say it. And so it's a very relatable and relevant thing. And it's also true to my story. So I thought it made sense for the title. And then Jesus also, I'm a very spiritual person. I always have been. I have this third eye sitting up here in the middle of my noggin, which was something I was born with. I didn't do like my fellows in India. I don't have to put one on. I woke up like this.
Flawless.
Yeah, they should cut me a check for stealing my look, because I'm sure they didn't start doing this in India until after 1982, right after I was born. I'm sure if we look it up, that's when they first started the bindis down there. and
You're amazing.
And then a lot of my story and a lot of the tragedy of it is tied to when I got kicked out of the church for not being straight. And so, but then again, everybody has some sort of spiritual concept, whether it's fully developed or not, or in a process of being developed, or whether they've chosen what to believe in. Most people believe there's at least something out there. And most people believe we have a soul and a spirit, even if it doesn't go any further than that. And so Jesus is who I choose to believe in. And that also represents everyone's quest for spirituality. So I believe that I have everyone covered in between sex, drugs, and Jesus.
Oh my God. Your life, it's literally, if you have not already started writing a book, I would have told you just write a book, because it is like a TV series, like you want to just grab the popcorn and listen to it. Let's start, because you have lived such a, not big life, but like you have done a lot of things in your life. How was your childhood? I would love if you could share more about where you just started. Did you know from the young age about your sexual orientation? Did you your parents were straight, not straight, but strict? Oh my God, it's too late here. So I would love to know more about where you just were born and where did you start?
Oh my gosh. I was born in the fucking hood. I am from such a broke ass part of town. And oh my God, I had such a strict upbringing. My dad was he was abusive. In the South, they believe in corporal punishment. They would, he would take belts off, and hit me and stuff like that. And one time he hit me so bad, I had my forearm swole up with these huge whelps and everything. And my grandmother had to put cool towels on there to try to keep the swelling down. So I don't believe in physically hitting children. It took me until I started doing this show and talking to people till I even realized that would be considered abuse. I just thought that was just normal because that's just the way they do it here in the South. People just beat on children, but there's no correction. They're just taking out anger and stuff like that because there's no explanation of what was done wrong and how to correct it. And hey, you do good the next time. It's just I'm angry about some shit I haven't processed, so let me hit on this kid. And they call it chastisement. And then they try to use scripture to justify it. The scriptures, spare the rod, spoil the child, or all of that foolishness. And it's just taking it way too far. So it was 5 of us in a little house. I don't know. That thing couldn't have been no more than 400 square feet. You couldn't call it a house. It was more like a duplex thing. And it's like that, in the projects or in the ghetto, you'll have just little people just build houses and conjoin them together. One of my siblings slept in the front room. We had a front room and a back room, and then a little bitty bathroom and a little bitty kitchenette type of thing. And then that was it. There was no dining room table. There wasn't enough room for all that. So one of my siblings slept on the couch. Then me and the other sibling had a bunk beds, which were next to my parents' bedroom. Well, no, next to their bed, same room. There was no doors in any of this except for to the bathroom. Everything other than that, there's no doors, or at least none that would be closable because everybody shared every space. And so, let me see, I had 5 shirts, 5 shorts, jeans, and I would mix and match those all throughout each school year, and then maybe get a new set at the beginning of the next school year. And so I didn't realize that I was poor. I never had that sort of mentality, as I was always a diva. And I had an eye for the finer things in life, even though I didn't have them. I always had that hope in me. And so, yeah, you asked me if I knew that I wasn't straight. Yeah, probably about the age of 3, I started noticing how fine my dad's friends were, playing with Ken dolls, Barbie dolls, all of that starts at that age. It's not a choice. It's no different than learning what your favorite colors are, or what you're going to like, your favorite flowers or favorite insects, or whatever the case may be. You just kind of discover these things about yourself. You don't, no one lays out a palette of colors and well, which one do you want to be your favorite? You are surprised at the things you discovered about yourself because it's not a choice. Life is about discovery. So that was my upbringing, lots of abuse and knowing I was not straight from an early age.
What was your interest maybe in high school? What did you enjoy, or school or high school? What was your hobbies? What was the things you were just like was giving or bringing joy to you?
I liked being in the art club. I like being in the honor chorale singing like every gay boy does. Nothing like a good show tune. and so, and and then I liked being a manager for the wrestling team. So I started off trying to be on the wrestling team because my brother was on the wrestling team, and so I wanted to try to keep up with him. And then I got tired of getting my ass kicked because I really wasn't all that great at being tough. And then I was totally distracted because a part of me wanted to be grappled and taken down and dominated by all those fine ass men. And so I really wasn't committed to winning because I wanted to be controlled and dominated by them. And so, as the saying goes, honey, you can't rape the willing. And so after I got tired of getting my ass kicked, I became a team manager, which means I was keeping score, travel arrangements, that sort of thing, kind of like an administrative clerk for the wrestling team. And that brought me immense joy for a few years in high school as my extracurricular activity. And by that, I lettered, I had a letterman's jacket. I lettered in wrestling and art, and everything like that, and in music, I do believe. And so that was the sort of stuff. And then, of course, I gardened and I had chickens and rabbits.
Really? Oh, that is so cute. To have a garden. You were such a nurturer from even like early on. How did you find yourself selling drugs? I'm asking all these questions because I believe you cannot talk to a person if you don't understand them. You cannot love a child. You cannot love anyone if you don't understand them. So I'm trying to understand your journey. How did you, this nurturing guy who had this interest and this joy, because so many children don't have hobbies or don't understand what they want or like, it seems to me that you had a good understanding of what you liked or not. How did you find yourself selling drugs?
Well, there's nurturing in the criminal underworld. You see, because people come into the criminal underworld to find family and community. It's not like it looks on TV all the time. There's a bunch of badass people kicking ass and guns and shooting and just high-speed chases from the police. You have people who are legitimately lonely, who have been kicked out of churches, out of their homes, homeless, families rejected them since they were teenagers or whenever they came out. But, you can come into a drug house, a trap house, a dope house, whatever you want to call it, a nightclub, a sketchy bar, and nobody is going to throw you out for being who you are. So selling drugs comes along, or drugs come along with the nightlife, with the criminal element. It's a part of it, like daisies and flowers are out in nature. Drugs are a part of it. It's just the way it is. And so for me, I had a great sense of validation from it. I'm a good business person. I was channeling it differently then. I had got kicked out of church myself for not being straight. And so I immersed myself into the nightlife because I knew I would not be rejected there. And then people just kind of started to look at me and kind of nod at me like I would have drugs. I hadn't even tried any drugs up to this point because I was so busy doing church work and stuff like that. And I guess I always carried myself very flashy like and stuff like that. And because people expected it from me, I kind of allowed it to happen. So once I started to dabble into the drugs, I was like, you know what? I can get more and I can pay for my own shit if I just sell a little bit to my friends and stuff like that. And then me being the Sagittarius that I am and not knowing when enough is enough, I kept like wanting to do more and more and more, far past me selling enough to pay for my own habit, to pay for my own fucking narcotics. I'm like, well, how much further can I take this shit? Because, I like to be extreme, let's go. And so that's how it became big. Now, I had a job making $30 to $70 an hour. I did not need to do this. But what I did need was the love and attention that I felt like I was getting from people who wanted what I was selling. And the phone was always blowing up. I was never alone, barely, hardly. There was always someone around. And so it filled that void because I didn't heal whenever I got kicked out of church. I didn't realize how traumatic that was for me. And I didn't realize how much we seek community. All of us do. As they say, no man is an island. I didn't realize how true that is. You're going to seek a group of people to attach yourself to, even if it's a whole bunch of lonely people sitting there being lonely with each other. You're going to find it. If it's through gaming, playing with, doing RPG or whatever, gaming, which I do now, religiously since the pandemic has started. It's still community. We need to be around other people. And so it didn't mix well because I tried to take my nurturing values into the criminal underworld, and I was perceived as weak because I was very nice and generous and kind with people and, giving away a lot of stuff and everything like that. So I was still quite nurturing. I was just, I would throw a party and all the cocaine and all the ecstasy and everything would be on a nice platter and everything like that on the house. So my nature didn't change, just the way I channeled it did.
Why were you kicked out? Obviously, we know the reason, but how did it happen? Did you just came out? How did they know? And how big of a part of your life was church?
I was at church about at least 10 hours a week volunteering. I was the volunteer manager for the Wednesday night kids service. I was a worship leader for the Wednesday night kids service. And I was a teacher for the Wednesday night kids service. I sang in the adult choir on Saturday nights, and I sang in the adult choir at 2 services every Sunday morning.
How old are you at this point?
I'll be 39 next month. And all of this happened right around maybe 26, 27.
Okay, so you were 26, like 27, okay.
I was in my 20s. And so what happened was I had applied for a job at this church. It was Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas, which is the largest church in the United States, maybe like the first or second largest church in the world. It's a huge church, very popular. And I had applied for a job, and they searched my social media and they found my MySpace page. This was back when MySpace was a thing. The social media it's not what it was today. It was new. And, I wasn't thinking that way, like people were going to go look for me on MySpace or whatever, and so on there I had a very racy photo because I got tipsy and me and my friend decided to do an impromptu photo shoot, which resulted in me with like a cowboy hat on and maybe like 2 torn sleeves and little underwear, and then that was it. And I looked really cute, so I was like, I'm gonna make this my profile picture. And I had on there that I was like bisexual or whatever at the time. And, that I hung out in Montrose, which is the gay district in Houston. And so they found the profile, showed it to as many staff members that they could before I made it private. And they called me in there and they're like, we're firing you from volunteering because we found this MySpace profile. So I didn't come out to them. I didn't bring any boyfriends or nothing up there to the church. I was very professional, very on time, and very about my business when I was there. That was like a separate life. Looking back on it, I wish I had never done that because I was, quieting a part of myself to go there and render that service, which is something we should never, ever do. And so we should be only go to places where we could be 100% of ourselves all the time and never have to quiet, not even a slight bit of us, because it's hurting us. Mm-hmm. And lesson learned. And so they were like, yeah, we're firing you from volunteering. We found your picture. And and then like, they were like personally offended. They were like, how dare you? How could you be hanging out with, the way the woman said it, she was like, you can't be doing that over there, hanging out there with them, referring to like non-straight people. Like, you can't be hanging out with gay people and volunteering at this church. It's just not going to work. And they were like, one of the kids at the church could have found your profile and all of this. And I'm all like, okay, first of all, they're probably fucking and doing all kind of drugs too, because that's just the way it works in the world. And or at least they've seen it on television. And I'm like, why would I be arrogant enough to just think people are going to go and Google me? Like, that's not the sort of thing you're just trying to be I'm just trying to be like a humble servant and work and do my part. I'm not thinking people are going to look me up on the internet. And so And then with all the volunteer training and everything, like I was like, why? I was thinking this. I wasn't allowed to say a word. If I tried to say anything, they just shut it off. They weren't interested in my perspective or my values or what was important to me. It was just the way they saw everything, and that I no longer fit into that, and then I had to go. Now, never mind, I'd been volunteering up there at least 2 or 3 years. So they went with what my MySpace profile said versus 2 to 3 years of damn near daily hand in hand working next beside me. They chose that instead. And then and then they did offer me a conversion therapy package though. They were like, if you will read this book and become ungay, then you can work your way back into our graces. You can go be an usher for right now, but you cannot be in the choir anymore or work around children, aka we think you're a pedophile because you're not straight. And just this as a de facto standard with some people. But you can be an usher, and if you convert and become straight after you read these books, then we can work with you from there.
Oh my God, they said that if you would like ungay yourself, obviously maybe in different words, you can come back.
Yeah.
Oh my God, where are we? And it's church, people in church who. That's why I don't like people who stand behind the religion and behind the God, because sometimes those people blame the most, shame the most, and don't accept people the most. And you have spent 2 or 3 years there. That obviously that must have been traumatizing and painful. It's like rejection. It is literally rejecting who you are, not what you do, but who you are. How did you just cope with all of that? What was your reaction?
I didn't cope. I looking at them, I knew I had 2 choices that day. They had the adult choir pastor and the kids choir leader, there to fire me together. And I could see it was no negotiating with them. Either I was going to do this conversion therapy thing or there was nothing else, or I was going to have to like beat their fucking asses, which I considered doing too, but I didn't have a criminal record then. And so I wasn't about that life. And so I just got up and walked the fuck out. And I'll never forget the shocked look on their faces. Like they couldn't believe that I didn't take the conversion therapy package. They were just.
They told you in person? You were like in the same room? I thought it was over the phone.
No, I wish, because then I wouldn't have wasted my fucking time and gas money going up there, because this was on a regular volunteer night. So I had on my volunteer service vest and badge and everything ready to go and do what I usually do. I thought maybe I was going to actually get hired for the job I applied for, because they took me up to the exclusive 5th floor where only staff goes. So I was thinking this is going to be really good or really bad. So I didn't get the job. I actually got fired from volunteering. And I didn't cope. I went and met my friend at a bar, and I think maybe had a drink and some sushi. And then I cried like a fucking baby. But I didn't, but I internalized that hurt. I should have gone to a counselor, a psychiatrist, or called, got some professional help. And I didn't realize how deep trauma can go. And so, a lot of my drug using and stuff like that I was rebelling, against them, against the church, because I had turned down every guy who ever offered me drugs in my entire life. Except for maybe a little bit of weed in California, but I didn't inhale, I didn't inhale. Yeah. So, but anything other than that, I was like, no. But once that veil was torn in between, or once that connection that I had with the church was torn like a veil, I started saying yes to everything. So I coped through drugs, even though I didn't realize I was doing it at the time.
You were just numbing the pain.
Right. And I was bitter and I was angry. It took me about maybe 5 years before I ever stepped in the church again. And I had been in church my entire life. I should never have let what they did put a distance between me and God like that. But I've learned now to separate church people and religious people from God himself. And so I'm trying hard to fight that, the way that church people make God look, because it's not actually how he is. He's so much nicer than Christians.
Yes, I understand the way you are saying it, and obviously, it feels like it was kind of like a test for you, or the universe, the God was like just trying to teach you that lesson, that you and your connection to God is just more than church. Like that God is always in you, always in your heart, and you are just always connected. From finding yourself selling drugs, how just did your journey continue?
While I was selling drugs, I contracted hepatitis B and HIV. And so that's when I had, like, I would say definitely like a mental breakdown, nervous breakdown, because I thought I was going to die, like realistically, because everybody I'd ever known who had HIV had died. I didn't know anybody who was living, as they say, with AIDS or with HIV, because somebody tried to intentionally give me HIV when I was like a teenager, and he like literally shriveled up and died with all these skin lesions and shit all over. He was like 24. And he went from like super fine, six pack, fine ass dude, to like a husk and died. And during this time in Houston, people were still dying of AIDS. I would show up to a bar and be like, hey, where's such and such? Oh, they passed, he had AIDS, it's not
Is it
like
very
it was
common? Does it happen often?
in those days. And I don't want to say common, because it's not like
Okay.
it was like back in the 70s where like, damn, people were dropping like flies, but it's not like it was so uncommon that it was unheard of, you know, and so that's what I had in my head. And, all you see on television is the worst possible scenarios. And I didn't know then the impact that media, can have on the brain and the subconscious. So I already had a belief about HIV and AIDS through what I've seen on television, what happened to these other people, and I did not do my own research. And so once this happened, I already had a belief, and so that's what I function off of. It wasn't logical. It didn't make any sense. There was a plan that could have happened, but I didn't pursue that because of what I already believed. Now, I also found out in a very negative way, the liver specialist who was treating me, if you would even call it that, because he was a terrible doctor for hepatitis, didn't tell my primary care doctor about the HIV. Rather, he decided to leave it on a voicemail on New Year's Eve back in, I believe, 2011. So I found out that I was HIV positive from a voicemail. And then I found out I was hepatitis B positive from a letter in the mail, because I had gone to donate blood, and they were like, no, you have hepatitis B antibodies, don't bring us your blood anymore. And so it's something to be said about the way you deliver sensitive news to people. I learned through those two experiences. And so from there, I started making, I just got super careless because I lost my will to live. And so then I started getting arrested. I got 3 felonies that year. I got drug raided. They sent the SWAT team after me, the whole nine, like men, Kevlar vests, semi-automatic rifles, face shields, helicopters, the dogs, knock the door down, that sort of thing. I'm not going to say exactly how much drugs and meth I was selling, but I will say that the people that I was getting my shit from, they were moving probably like 2 kilos a day of meth. Yeah. And that's enough to get the feds' attention.
2 kg is a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, 2 kilos is a lot.
Yes. Yeah, 2 kgs is a hell of a lot. And but I didn't understand the life that I was in. I wasn't dangerous like that, and I wasn't a killer, and I was hanging around hired assassins and shit like that, like it was nothing every day. And so, but it was thrilling, it was fun. And I never felt alone, really, unless I was by myself, rarely. But these people, they accepted me. I had like pseudo fathers, a pseudo father and a pseudo mom there. I felt truly, like I belonged again. And like you said, the church, it was super dehumanizing what they did to me, but I didn't even realize that that was a part of what happened until a couple of weeks ago when I was talking to somebody who has experience with trauma therapy and stuff like that. I didn't even register that as a dehumanizing act or like they rejected me, although I felt all those emotions, but I didn't know how to deal with it because I didn't know what it was called.
First of all, how was your health? And how did you, I don't know, I don't have a lot of information about HIVs. And as you said, only thing that I've heard is like whenever people get HIV, they die. That's the only thing I know about it. So I don't know anything about it. So I would love you to tell me more how it was, because I don't know I don't want to ask any question when I don't know anything about the topic. So you explain more to me.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to. It's very manageable because you just take like a pill. So they started me off on like a 3-pill regimen, I think, a day. And what they do is they monitor the viral load. So the blood is drawn and it's like the parts per million in the blood. And they can tell you whether or not you have 1 million copies, 2 million copies of whatever virus you have. And so you take this medicine and the goal is to get it down to a level where it can no longer be detected in your blood. And then you're granted the status of undetectable. And this is considered the healthiest you can get. It's not yet at a point where you can be cured of it fully, but you can take medicine to suppress it. And what the medicine does is it stops the virus from replicating itself faster than your immune system can suppress it. So your immune system is working and the medicine is working. And so you no longer have enough of the virus on board to effectively change your life or to change your health. It's not going to make you sicker. In the case of hepatitis, it won't hurt my liver because there's not enough virus, because it's not, you have to have enough virus of anything. Like 1 or 2 little flu viruses in you is not going to make you cough. You have to have enough of it. And so this stops it from taking over. It also stops you from being really able to transmit it to other people. Generally speaking, there's a lot of variables, but you have to have enough of the virus on board of HIV specifically to infect somebody else. So if you're undetectable, the chances is greatly lessened that you're going to be able to give it to somebody else. Now, you know, safe sex is always encouraged, of course. And then there's also PrEP, which is something that like a pill that you can take if you're not HIV positive that will help to shield your cells against HIV. So there's all sorts of tools and advantages that people have now who are, you know, maybe just starting to have sex or don't have HIV, so that you don't have to really worry about it. But should you get it, you know, the thing to do is to get a psychiatrist, to get some sort of mental health counseling, because you never know how you might feel about it, because you feel like your body's been invaded. I felt filthy. I felt dirty. I felt guilty. I felt ashamed. As I understand it, some people feel angry, and then those people tend to be the ones who might try to go out and intentionally give it to other people. But medically speaking, it is manageable, but I feel like it is manageable, but you got to get your mental health on the same page too, to believe that it's manageable and to still want to live. Because people, you know, can try and shame you for that. You know, I was wondering, you know, can I have children now? Am I going to be able to have sex again? You know, and all of those things. Will I be rejected for this disease? You know, all of those things come into play. However, in the gay community, a hell of a lot of people are HIV positive, and actually, you know, it's actually not even a thing. People don't reject me for having HIV and stuff like that. Like I thought that they would. I actually found, you know, love and acceptance and everything like that. And so, you know, all the problems that happened to me, you know, were because of what was in my head. The HIV never actually did me anything. It never made me sick. It didn't take anything from me. But in my head, I believed that it had. And then so all of that manifested into my life because of what I believed.
I would love to also like hear, were you and your partner together at that point?
When I found out I had HIV?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Your current partner. It was, how old were you? Oh, if you remember.
I had just turned 29.
Okay,
and
so okay.
I've been with my partner here for like 3 years. Okay. So It's been many, 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 many men and many
Ah.
changes since then. Not many, 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 because I'm not going to say many men because I really shut down and I really kind of like stopped having sex and stuff like that for like
Mm.
at least not at the pace that I was for a long time. And I
Ah.
never really got back to how I was before,
Mm.
you know. And so, but no, I wasn't with him then, but he's totally, cool and open-minded.
I would love to hear more about those moments where you are enjoying yourself, where you have just let go of your past and just found this kind of new way of life, a new way of joy.
I'm going to tell you how the Hebrew Bible says that this deliverance here has been by little, line upon line, and precept upon precept. It wasn't an instantaneous thing, and by God, it's still in the works. But you know, it's it's just kind of like a realization. And look, me and my partner had to go through a lot of couples counseling and therapy and stuff like that because I still had a lot of fucking issues, because when I was younger, my dad had, two affairs and stuff like that. And so I had all kinds of trust issues and stuff like that going on. And being in the military doesn't exactly leave you without anxiety. you know, it's
If we
not
have
a
not talked about that part, yes.
not a peaceful life serving in the military. And so over the years, I've gone and sought things. I didn't just go right back into a Christian church. I started hanging out with the Buddhists. I read up on Louise Hay. I'm glad you mentioned her name. I really am. And I started to pull wisdom from every fucking where I could get it, because I was like, this previous life didn't work, and what I thought before didn't work. I need more knowledge and everything like that. I'm pro Jesus and the Trinity and everything like that, but I also like to glean knowledge from wherever I can get it. Um, I did like Louise Hay's mirror work for a while. I tried, some of the mantras and stuff from her, I still say to this day, and stuff like that. And
I have this book here, Healing Meditations. I use her mantras almost every single day.
yeah, man. And so, my partner has helped a lot because, he's been very accepting of me, though my weight's been up and down, and stuff like that. Getting back close to God has helped. Healing is going to look different for everybody, but it did start with me accepting the truth. You have HIV, you have a history of hepatitis B, you were a drug dealer, you were the bad guy, you love drugs, and that's okay, just like not as a negative or as a positive, just this is reality. And a part of me was trying to fight off, trying to fight it. You can't fight who you really are. You have to accept it, then you can work with it, whether it's good or bad or whatever. Worry about that later. I don't assign the titles to it. Just accept. I had to really, really accept myself, and I had to get the voices out of my past, out of my head. Was the prayer that I started to pray. I didn't want to anything I learned in church growing up, anything that my parents told me, my church leaders. I know they didn't mean wrong, but I needed to reset and start over. At the age of 39, I told God, I was like, I want to start life anew, as though I'm just experiencing everything for the first time, and you can tell me what I need to keep and what I need to let go. And I think that when I prayed that prayer, that's when everything started to turn.
I like that prayer so much. Our thoughts and our willpower just truly creates our life. Whatever you are willing to, it just universe gives you whatever we want. And you ask for healing, you are getting healing. You asked for a new life, you are getting new life. You are amazing. You are amazing, because the things you have been through, and now I would have never thought that this guy who I talked like 1 hour ago when we started conversation, this joyful, like you have spark in your eyes. You are such a fun person, and you have this energy, and you have been in military, you have been through so much, and you have been through such a challenging life, and you have this lightness into you, like this light, like people can get dense and their energy and their aura can get dense. but still you are smiling, you're having fun, you're enjoying life, you're going to your facial now. And it's just phenomenal. It is phenomenal. I admire people like you who have been through shit and they still stand there smiling and enjoying life. That is something else. That is something else that I don't see often, and I admire you.
Well, I appreciate it. I give all glory to God, not to myself, because I don't feel like I could have done this alone. It took a whole, besides the spiritual element, it took a whole team of people, the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is a VA hospital here, all sorts of help, and I had to, I worked my way over being a janitor, to a food delivery driver, to a server, to a massage therapist. I went back to school for that. This year is about a good 10-year stretch, for me to get to being homeless and living on the streets and sleeping in the back of cars, to where I am now and having my own house and, with my podcast and everything. So it wasn't overnight. It took a lot of time, took a lot of failures, a lot of misbehaving, a lot of, and I was on probation for years and everything like that. And I didn't always do right, but God had mercy on me. And therefore, and I thank him for it, and I'm still here. So, but like someone told me before, all my gratitude and thanks and everything like that, and all the avenues available, I still had to make the choice to get up and walk down them to do better. And so I accept your praise, and and I thank you for that, because I do understand the human element to everything too.
Of course. We have to give ourselves credit. We have to give ourselves credit. And if people are like me and they're like, this guy is awesome, and I want to learn more about him or more from him, where can people find you? Tell me about your podcast, the name again, and I will link everything down in the description box. But still, if people are lazy to go there and click the links and they want just to hear about it, tell us more about you.
It's just sexdrugsandjesus.com for all my extraness, and I am extra, and I accept that about myself now, and so I am extra. I do like to make something simple, so everything is simply at sexdrugsandjesus.com. You do have to be 18 and over to enter the site. All my episodes are explicit, but everything is there. That website will link you to all the social media. We filmed a docuseries to complement the memoir that's coming out. Those videos are starting to drop on there. My email, DeVannon@gmail.com. Everything is at that website.
Before I ask you my last question, to leave me with the last word, is there anything you really wanted to mention and I didn't get the chance to ask you the question?
I think the things that I usually really like to mention, we already talked about in this particular interview, which would be to be more serious about your spiritual path and to not abandon it because of a poor example from somebody else, not to get jaded spiritually. So if somebody wants to be more like the universe, like how you reference and stuff like that, totally cool. If they want to go be a Buddhist, or if they just want to do whatever, a physical church is not necessary. What's necessary is private time with whoever, whatever you choose to believe in. And so my biggest encouragement is for people to align themselves and to get themselves spiritually in tuned and fit, because if that's not in order, then the rest of your life is going to be out of balance.
Yes, that's such an important lesson, to just listen to your heart. I think Mother Teresa has this huge quote, like, people, you will love people, they won't love you back, and all of that. You will want to do good and they will that accept it. I don't remember it exactly too, but it's like, but you have to remember, it was never between you and them, it was always between you and God. So no matter what we do it for ourselves, we do it for the God. So your life is an amazing example for that. Now leave me and listeners with your joyful voice, something that is on top of your heart. It can be one sentence, it can be one word or two sentences, but something just you feel you want to say.
Well, there's a meditation that I learned from Louise Hay. It's a bit longer than a word or two.
Yes.
And you probably know it, but she says, I'm a divine, magnificent expression of life, and all of life loves me. I am open and warm and receptive. I bring good experiences into my life. This is a day I have never lived before. I will rejoice in every moment, for I know I shall never live it again. I affirm for myself good health. I express myself creatively, and I have fabulous relationships. I know that my income is constantly growing. I know and affirm that I am appreciated and treated with respect at work. I am at peace. And now open my consciousness to bring some wonderful new people into my life, people I can laugh and have fun with and exchange some wonderful spiritual ideas with. And now go forth to meet this day, rejoicing in all that I am and all that I have and all that shall unfold before me. I am safe and all is well.
So be it. I love it. I'm gonna listen to this again, this last part especially. Thank you so much for being my guest. There are so many things I want to ask you even more, but we have talked so much, and I just appreciate you. That's all just comes out from my mouth. It's like, I appreciate you and thank you for your presence and for your like this wonderful, cute, amazing energy.
Thank you for having me, my dear.
And thank you, listeners, for listening. And until next time.